I took the blame for his white moonlight for 7 years. On the day I was released from prison, my fiancé Jetsia did not come to pick me up. Giant screens across the city were broadcasting his and Nora Sue's grand wedding. The MC shouted, "Is the groom willing to use the $3 million first encounter diamond ring to bind the bride for a lifetime?" $3 million. It was the compensation from that accident I had back then. He once held me and said this money was our future. Now, that future is hanging around Nora Sue's neck, Jetsia said with deep affection in front of the camera. "I do," I laughed. Then he turned and walked into the nearest police station. "Officer, I want to reopen the case." As I walked into the police station, the roaring cheers from the wedding scene still clung to the back of my neck. I was wearing the old clothes from when I was released from prison, washed so much they had faded, and I stood out like a sore thumb here. The young officer who received me had a formulaic look in his eyes. "Hello, how can I help you?" I placed a worn-out voice recorder on the table and pushed it over. 7 years ago, the hit-and-run case on Chengnan Road, the perpetrator was me, Sky Wen. I confess, I was sentenced to 7 years. My voice was flat and emotionless. The young officer froze, clearly having no recollection of the old case. He tapped on the keyboard to pull up the file. Sky Wen, found, traffic accident. Sentenced to 7 years, victim Nora Sue, severely injured. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with complexity. "Did you just get released from prison today?" "Yes," I nodded. "Now, I want to overturn the case." "Overturn the case?" He frowned. "Is there new evidence?" "The evidence is right here." I pointed to the voice recorder. Back then, the real culprit wasn't me. The officer's expression instantly turned serious. He picked up the voice recorder, but before he could operate it, the news channel on the TV behind him was broadcasting that wedding. In the scene, Jetsia places the first encounter diamond ring on Nora Sue's finger. The camera zooms in for a close-up of the diamond ring, its brilliance dazzling. Nora Sue is crying, her tears falling like pear blossoms, her delicate voice echoing throughout the city. "Jet, thank you for giving me a home." Jetsia held her, smiling contentedly at the camera. "Silly, this is what you deserve. You've suffered so much over the years, you've suffered." His heart suddenly stopped, and a suffocating feeling surged through his limbs. What suffering has Nora Sue endured? Was it living in luxury at Jetsia's villa, or playing the role of a socialite enjoying a peaceful life on social media? Meanwhile, I, in a dark and sunless prison cell, counted the scratches on the wall and endured 2,555 days and nights. The young police officer also saw the TV and recognized the main character, the president of the Xie group. He looked at me, the sympathy in his eyes turning to shock. I twitched the corner of my mouth, my muscles stiff. "Officer, I served 7 years in prison for her. She used my compensation for my broken leg to pay for this wedding. You tell me, is this case worth reopening?" My voice wasn't loud, but the air in the entire office froze. The young officer's face changed dramatically, and he immediately called over an older colleague. The older officer Zhong had sharp eyes and was highly experienced. He picked up the voice recorder and scrutinized me. "Miss Wen, do you know what overturning a case means? With insufficient evidence, you could be charged with false accusation." "Of course I know." I met his gaze. "This recorder, I've held it every night as I slept, for 7 whole years. I understand what it means better than anyone. It means the youth that was stolen from me. It means the injustice that kept my father from resting in peace even in death. It means the blood debt that Jetsia and Nora Sue owe me." Officer Zhong said no more and pressed the play button. A sharp, tearful female voice came through, so clear it sent chills down one's spine. "Jet, please, let Sky Wen take my place. I can't go to jail, I can't have a criminal record." It was Nora Sue's. Immediately after, it was Jetsia's voice. "Nora, don't be afraid, I'm here. You can't have a criminal record. Your future is a path paved with starlight. What should we do then?" Sky Wen saw everything. "Sky Wen, she loves me. She would be willing to take the blame for you. I'll talk to her, and when she gets out, I'll marry her. I'll take care of her for the rest of her life." The recording is very short, yet it laid bare that bloody rainy night from 7 years ago for all to see. In the office, a deathly silence fell. The young officer's mouth hung open in an O shape. Officer Jong turned off the recording, his face ashen. "Miss Wen, the voice recorder will be sent to the technical department for analysis immediately. You yourself will need to provide a detailed statement." "All right." The door of the police station was pushed open, a group of reporters rushed in, carrying an array of cameras and microphones. "Excuse me, are you Ms. Sky Wen, who has just been released from prison? I heard you came to the police station to report President Jet Xie." My appearance was more like a bomb than that century's wedding. Officer Jong immediately stood up to maintain order. "Everyone, calm down. This is a police station." I looked at those camera flashes and did not hide. "I just want to make a big scene, big enough for everyone to see. I want to drag Jet Xie and Nora down from the peak of their happiness and glory with my own hands." Shattered into pieces. My phone rings. Unknown number. I answered, and on the other end was Jet Xie's voice. Barely containing his anger. "Sky Wen, where are you? What exactly are you trying to do?" I laughed, speaking into the phone and also to the cameras, word by word, crystal clear. "President Xie, happy wedding. Do you like the wedding gift I gave you? Sky Wen, are you crazy?" Jet Xie's voice was very low, each word laced with fire. "Am I crazy?" I let out a light laugh. "Compared to you, I'm far from it, after all. Not everyone can calmly use their fiancé's compensation for a broken leg to buy a diamond ring for their mistress." On the other end of the phone came rapid breathing, mixed with Nora Sue's sobs. "Jet, how could she say that? I'm so scared." "Don't be afraid, Nora, I'm here." After comforting his bride, Jet Xie's tone shifted, his voice cold as ice. "Sky Wen, I order you to come out of the police station immediately and stop your ridiculous antics. Don't force me to deal with you in a more unpleasant way." An order, 7 years in prison, and he still thinks I'm the fool who would do whatever he said. "Jet Xie, what gives you the right to order me around now? Is it as my ex-fiancé, or as the victim's family member? The thief who embezzled my 3 million in compensation?" He was left speechless by me. "Sky Wen, what will it take for you to stop?" "Money, I can give it to you, 5 million, 10 million, as long as you drop the case and keep your mouth shut." He's still the same as ever. "I always thought money could solve everything. My father is a respected professor, and our family never placed much importance on money. As for Jet Xie, he is a self-made nouveau riche who climbed up from the bottom. With a deep-seated reverence for money ingrained in his bones, I used to think this was just a difference in character, something that could be bridged by love. Only now do I realize, this is a chasm of values." "Jet Xie," I said, enunciating each word, "what I want, you can't give. I want you and Nora Sue to be utterly disgraced, kneeling before my father's grave, confessing your sins. Dream on." He roared. "Sky Wen, I'm warning you, don't push your luck, face." I laughed. "My face was trampled into the mud by your own hands on that rainy night 7 years ago. Now, I'm just here to pick it back up." With that, I hung up the phone directly. The world has quieted down. Officer Jong had already dispersed the reporters and signaled for me to follow him to the interrogation room. The process of giving my statement was lengthy. I recounted every detail from 7 years ago without holding anything back. That rainy night, I had just received an offer from a foreign university, and Jet Xie was celebrating with me. On the way home, he received a phone call. It was Nora Sue, saying she was drunk and being harassed at a bar. Jet Xie immediately turned around and rushed to be the hero saving the beauty. I remember he said to me at the time, "Sky, Nora is all alone outside. It's so pitiful. Let's go pick her up." Okay, I loved him at the time, and by extension, I naturally nodded, but when we arrived, Nora Sue was perfectly fine. She just didn't want to be alone. Jet Xie didn't say anything and let Nora Sue drive, saying he had been drinking. Nora Sue playfully took the driver's seat, and then the car accident happened. She hit someone and was instantly terrified. I pushed the car door open, wanting to save the person, but found my leg was stuck. An excruciating pain shot through me. Before I passed out, I heard Nora Sue scream and Jet Xie's comforting words. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. Jet Xie was by my bedside, his eyes bloodshot. He said the other person didn't make it, and the driver fled the scene. He said that Nora Sue is a public figure, and having a criminal record would ruin everything. He said, "Sky, do you love me? Would you do this for me? Help Nora this once, just this once," he said. "Once you're out, we'll get married. I swear, I'll treat you well for the rest of my life." I looked at him and asked a very foolish question. "Do you love me, or do you love her?" He was silent for a long time, then said, "Sky, you are the one I want to spend my life with. Nora, she is just a sister I need to protect." I believed him. Like a fool, I believed it for 7 whole years. By the time the statement was finished, it was already dark. Officer Jong told me that the forensics department's analysis results are in, and the recording shows no signs of editing or synthesis. They have formed a special task force and officially opened an investigation. I walked out of the police station with only a few $dozen on me. After my father passed away, my home was handled by Jet Xie. I have nowhere to go. A phone was handed to me. "Miss Wen, if you don't mind, you can use mine." I looked up and saw a man wearing a suit and gold-rimmed glasses. He looks to be around 30 years old, with a refined demeanor, but his gaze is very sharp. "Who are you?" "My name is Li Ziyi." "A lawyer," he said, handing me a business card. 7 years ago, I was still an intern at Juncheng Law Firm and observed your case. I've always felt there were doubts about the case. Li Ziyi. I have a vague impression of this name. 7 years ago, in that suffocating interrogation room, everyone urged me to confess. Only he, an intern trailing behind the lead lawyer, unable to even speak, glanced back at me before leaving. In that glance, there was no sympathy. No pity, only a trace of inquiry and doubt. "It's him. I remember you," I said. Li Ziyi smiled, his eyes bright behind his glasses. "It seems my memory is quite good too." He shoved his phone into my hand. "My number is saved in here. Call me anytime you need anything. Also, I booked a hotel for you. You need a safe place to rest right now." I didn't pretentiously refuse. "I have nothing now and truly need help." "Thank you, no need to thank me," Li Ziyi said. "I'm just doing what I should have done 7 years ago." He drove me to the hotel. I had just entered the room when my phone started vibrating like crazy. It was Jet Xie's mother, Mrs. Xie. I swiped to answer but stayed silent. On the other end of the line came a sharp, vicious roar. "Sky Wen, you bitch. What more do you want? How has our Xie family wronged you? While you were in prison, we treated you well with good food and drinks. Now that you're out, you bite the hand that fed you. What are you up to? Good food and drinks? Was it the moldy steamed buns or that bowl of soup with no trace of oil?" I let out a cold laugh. "Mrs. Xie, did your son not check the almanac for his wedding? Today is an inauspicious day, unsuitable for marriage. You jinx," she screamed, her voice cracking with rage. "You ruined my son's wedding. You've tarnished the Xie family's reputation. Don't you think for a second you'll get away with this? I'll give you 10 million. Issue a statement immediately, saying you forged the recording, that it was revenge out of love turned to hatred. 10 million. Money again. They always think that money can buy everything, including justice and dignity." "Mrs. Xie, when my father was critically ill, I begged you to let your son go to the hospital to see him one last time. What did you say back then?" My voice was soft, yet it abruptly silenced the curses on the other end of the phone. Of course, she remembered, at that time. Separated by the prison visitation glass, with bright red nails, she looked down on me and said, "Sky Wen, don't be ungrateful. Jet is busy taking care of Nora right now. How could he have time to bother with your dying old man? A poor university professor, dead is dead. What's there to see? My father never got to see me one last time before he died. This is the deepest thorn in my heart." "Why so quiet?" I asked her. "Can't remember, or don't dare to." She stammered incoherently. "When my father died, you also tried to buy me off with money, didn't you?" I continued. "Unfortunately, among the things my father taught me, there were no words like waiting for the highest bidder. I don't want your money, I want you to pay the price." I hung up the phone and blocked the number. Turn on the TV, and all the financial channels are reporting on the Xie Group, affected by the wedding scandal of its founder. Jet Xie. The Xie Group hit the daily limit down at the opening today, with its market value evaporating by billions. In the news footage, Jet Xie is seen flustered and surrounded by reporters, while Nora Sue beside him looks pale and ashen. How miserable. I turned off the TV and walked into the bathroom. The hot water washed over my body, but it couldn't wash away the marks left by those 7 years. I looked at the unfamiliar face in the mirror, sallow and haggard, with dry, brittle hair. The light in my eyes had long since been extinguished, but it's okay. Starting today, I will slowly, bit by bit, find them all again. Early the next morning, Li Ziyi arranged to meet me at his law firm. His law firm is located in the most expensive office building in the city center, grand and magnificent. Miss Wen, let's get straight to the point. He handed me a cup of coffee. The Xie family has assembled the top legal team in the country, ready to countersue you for defamation and extortion. Their strategy is clear: delay, drag the lawsuit out for years, wait for the public attention to fade, then use money and connections to settle everything. It's their usual trick. I took a sip of the coffee. It was very bitter. I've waited 7 years. I don't mind waiting a few more, I said, but I don't want to wait. I understand. Li Ziyi nodded. So we can't wait. That voice recorder is our trump card. But it's not enough. We need more direct evidence. Something that can deliver a fatal blow. What evidence? 7 years ago, after the car accident, do you still remember the coat Nora Sue was wearing? I close my eyes, and the scene from that rainy night clearly emerges. Nora Sue was wearing a champagne-colored trench coat that day, a limited edition from a luxury brand. I remember because Jet Xie once gave me an identical one. He said it was a couple's outfit. It was only later that I found out. What he bought for Nora Sue was a one-of-a-kind custom piece. What he gave me was a common style you could find anywhere in the store. I remember, I said, champagne color, limited edition. Exactly. Li Ziyi wrote a few words on the whiteboard. That coat must have had signs of collision, maybe even the victim's bloodstains, but it disappeared from the police evidence list. It was taken care of by Jet Xie. I immediately realized, right, as long as we can find that jacket, or find the person who disposed of it, we can nail them for good. Go find that jacket. As I said this, Li Ziyi's expression turned serious. It's been 7 years, and with the vast sea of people, it's really difficult. No matter how hard it is, we have to find him. My tone left no room for negotiation. Jet Xie is extremely arrogant. He wouldn't handle such dirty work himself. He'd definitely entrust it to the person he trusts the most, his assistant, or his driver. Neither. I shook my head. The one he trusts the most is always himself, but he needs an executor, someone absolutely loyal, who won't ask too many questions. A face came to my mind. Zhong Cheng. I said the name. Jet Xie's personal bodyguard and driver, who has been with him for over a decade. Zhong Cheng has been by his side since before the Xie family made their fortune. All right, I'll send someone to investigate this Zhong Cheng immediately. Li Ziyi nodded. The public opinion continues to escalate. The internet is flooded with news about me. Some people are calling me a scheming woman, saying I would do anything for money. More people are criticizing Jet Xie and Nora Sue. The stock price of Xie Group has plummeted. Nora Sue's social media accounts were flooded by angry netizens, and all her endorsements and film and television resources were terminated overnight. This is exactly the effect I wanted. I want them to die once in the court of public opinion first. That evening, I received a call from an unknown number. It's Nora Sue. Her voice was no longer delicate, filled with hysterical resentment. Sky Wen, are you satisfied? You've ruined me. You've destroyed everything. I ruined you. I retorted. Nora Sue, have you ever looked in the mirror? The one who ruined you is your own face, full of lies. What did I do wrong? I just love Jet. I just don't want to go to jail. It was you. You were the one who volunteered to take the blame for me. How dare you go back on your word now? Even now, she still thinks it's my fault. There's no saving someone like her. I was willing back then because I was foolish. I said, I'm not willing now because I don't want to be a fool anymore. Sky Wen, don't get too cocky. Jet won't let you off. He'll make you die a horrible death. Oh really? I laughed. Then tell him for me. I'm looking forward to it. After hanging up the phone, I gazed at the night scene outside the window. The city lights, once in my eyes, were the future with Jet Xie. Now, They are just cold, lifeless points of light. 3 days later, Li Ziyi brought me the news. Found him. There was a hint of excitement in his voice. Zhong Cheng resigned from Jetxia 3 years ago, went back to his hometown, and opened a small auto repair shop. My people found him. Will he talk? No. Li Ziyi shook his head. He's tight-lipped and won't admit to anything. He will talk. I stood up. Take me to see him. Zhong Cheng's hometown is a remote small county town. His auto repair shop is located on the outskirts of the city, small and shabby. When we arrived, he was repairing an old Santana, covered in grease. When he saw me, he froze, and the wrench in his hand fell to the ground. Miss Wen. He clearly still remembers me. I walked up to him without any small talk. 7 years ago, after the car accident in the southern part of the city, Jetxia asked you to dispose of a champagne-colored trench coat. Where is that coat? Zhong Cheng turned pale, his eyes darting away. I don't know what you're talking about. Is that so? I took a photo out of my bag. It was a picture of my late father. I held the photo up to his eyes. Do you recognize this man? He was my father, an old professor who taught his whole life. He never got to see me one last time before he died. When he passed away, I was in prison. And you? You took the hush money from Jetxia and lived your life without a care. Zhong Cheng's body began to tremble. Miss Wen, about what happened back then. You have children too, don't you? I stared into his eyes. Would you want your children to experience what I went through, to be wrongfully accused, to take the blame for someone else, to have their life ruined? My words struck his heart like a hammer. Blow after blow. He is a rough man, but not a bad person. He has his own conscience and principles. That piece of clothing, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I didn't throw it away. My heart tightened. I buried it, over there. He pointed to a wasteland behind the auto repair shop, right under that old locust tree. At the time, I felt something wasn't right. Mr. Xie told me to burn it, but I didn't dare. I thought, just in case, if anything happened in the future, it could serve as evidence. He looked at me, his eyes filled with guilt and struggle. Miss Wen, I'm sorry. Back then, I had no other choice. Now, you have a way, I said. Come with me to testify. 5. Zhong Cheng's appearance was the last straw that broke the camel's back. He not only identified Jetxia and Nora Su but also led us to unearth the windbreaker that had been buried for 7 years. The clothes had completely decayed, but after being sent for analysis, the trace substances left on them perfectly matched the evidence from the car accident scene. The evidence is irrefutable. Jetxia and Nora Su were placed under criminal detention. The sky of the Xie family had completely collapsed. Madame Xie exhausted all her connections and spent her entire fortune. But she was powerless to reverse the situation. She came to see me once, downstairs of Li Ziyi's law firm. She had lost her former arrogance and seemed to have aged 20 years overnight. She knelt before me, clutching my legs, crying uncontrollably with tears and mucus streaming down her face. Sky Wen, I beg you, please let Jet go. He knows he was wrong. He really knows he was wrong. He was just confused for a moment. He loves you. You've always been in his heart. I looked at her, feeling nothing inside. He loves me. I pulled my leg away. He loves me. So he let me go to prison for the one he truly loves. He loves me. So he used my compensation money to buy a diamond ring and pay for a wedding for his beloved. Mrs. Xie, you can save that story for the judge. I walked past her and went straight into the building. Behind me was her heart-wrenching cry. I know, many people will say I'm cold-blooded, that I'm unforgiving when I have the upper hand. But they haven't spent 7 years in prison. They haven't experienced that kind of despair and loneliness. What gives them the right to advise me to be magnanimous? On the day of the trial, I sat in the public gallery, watching the 2 people in the defendant's dock. Jetxia was so thin he looked gaunt, his eyes hollow. Nora Su kept crying, her makeup smeared, looking utterly disheveled. They saw me, their eyes filled with completely different emotions. Jetxia's gaze was full of resentment and unwillingness. Nora Su's eyes were filled with fear and pleading. How ridiculous. In the courtroom, Li Ziyi presented the case with clear logic, and piece by piece, the evidence was submitted: voice recorder, trench coat, Zhong Cheng's testimony. The Xie family's legal team suffered consecutive defeats, completely unable to fight back. When it was my turn to give the victim's statement, I stood up. I didn't look at Jet Xie, nor did I look at Nora Su. I looked at the judge, my voice calm. 7 years, 2,555 days. I lost not just my freedom, but also my father, my reputation, and my life. When my father passed away, they told me he died of a heart attack. But I knew he died from the disappointment and pain of having a murderer for a daughter. In prison, I thought every day about what I had done wrong. Later, I realized that my only mistake was loving the wrong person and trusting the wrong person. Today, I stand here not to seek sympathy, nor for the thrill of revenge. I am only here to take back what belongs to me, my innocence. I finished speaking and sat down. The entire courtroom was silent. The final verdict has been delivered. Su Qinghe, guilty of traffic accident offense and obstruction of justice, sentenced to 15 years in prison for multiple offenses combined. Jet Xie, guilty of harboring a criminal, obstruction of justice, and job-related embezzlement, sentenced to 20 years in prison for multiple offenses combined. Confiscate all illegal gains, return my 3 million in compensation, and add an additional 5 million for emotional damages. Upon hearing the verdict, Nora Su fainted on the spot. Jet Xie, on the other hand, went berserk, pointing at me and roaring, "Sky Wen, you venomous woman, I won't let you off even as a ghost." I watched his disheveled figure being dragged out by the bailiffs and finally, for the first time in 7 years, showed a genuine smile from the heart. It was over. No, it was the beginning of my new life. With the lawsuit settled, my name became known to everyone in this city. Some say I am a queen reborn from the ashes, while others call me a ruthless goddess of revenge. I don't care about these labels. The first thing I did after receiving the 8 million in compensation from the Xie family was to buy the best burial plot for my father. I knelt before the tombstone, burning the copies of the court verdict one by one for him. "Dad, your unfilial daughter has brought shame upon you for 7 years. Now, those who harmed you have all faced their retribution. May you rest in peace." The wind blew, scattering the ashes of the paper. Like my father's silent sighs, I didn't cry. My tears had long dried up 7 years ago. After handling my father's funeral affairs, I began to contemplate my own future. The company my father left behind was hollowed out by several relatives after his death, leaving only an empty shell. Everyone advised me to sell the company, take the money, and start over in a place where no one knows me. "Sky Wen, you can't outmaneuver those old foxes," Li Ziyi also advised me. "The business world is more complex and dirtier than the courtroom." I know. I looked at the dusty sign of the company. But this is my father's lifelong work. I can't just let it disappear. And I turned to look at him, smiling. What I fear the least is complexity and filth. 7 years in prison showed me the ugliest side of human nature. Those so-called business tycoons, in my eyes, are nothing but thugs in suits. Li Ziyi resigned from his job with an annual salary of 10 million and became the chief legal counsel at my company. He said, "I bet on your success." I looked at him and said seriously, "Li Ziyi, if you follow me, you might lose everything." He adjusted his glasses and smiled calmly. "That's perfect. I'll help you make a comeback." We began to reorganize the company. I liquidated all the remaining assets of the company, laid off all the employees, and only kept a few of the most essential technical staff. Then, with that 8 million, I started looking for opportunities in the capital market. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, a woman who has been in prison for 7 years, completely disconnected from society, dares to dream of getting a piece of the pie in the male-dominated financial world. Those uncles who used to call my father their brother now avoid me like the plague. They sit in meetings, at banquets, treating me like a joke. That girl from the Wen family, she doesn't know her place and will squander her father's fortune sooner or later. What a pity. She was a promising talent, but a few years in prison ruined her mind. These words always find their way to my ears through various channels. I don't care. I sleep only 4 hours a day, like a sponge, frantically absorbing all the information I missed over these 7 years. I have read all the financial news from the past 7 years and analyzed the financial reports of hundreds of listed companies. My mind is like a high-speed computer. Finally, I found an opportunity. A tech company named New Vision is on the verge of bankruptcy. With its stock price plummeting due to a leak of its core technology, everyone thought it was doomed, but I knew it wouldn't be, because its core technology was something my father had mentioned to me 7 years ago. It was a technology that was ahead of its time. I found the founder of New Vision, a tech geek about the same age as my father and just as stubborn. I told him I wanted to acquire his company. He looked at me as if I were a fraud. Little girl, this is not a place for you to play house. I never played house. I placed a self-made technical analysis report in front of him. Your photon chip technology could theoretically increase computing speed 100-fold, but your problem lies in the material. The silicon-based material you're using has already reached its physical limits. He froze. How do you know that? My father is Wen Zhenhua. Upon hearing that name, he shuddered all over. Are you Professor Wen's daughter? Yes, that day, we talked for a long time. I invested all my money into this company. I became the largest shareholder of New Vision. Everyone said I was crazy. 6 months later, New Vision released a new generation of chips, utilizing a completely new carbon-based material. The entire tech world was shaken. The company's stock price soared, increasing 50-fold. I became famous overnight. My name started appearing on the covers of various business magazines. Chairman Wen. This title replaced Sky Wen and became my new identity. Those who once mocked me began trying every possible way to get close to me. Relatives who once avoided me at all costs now came to my company's entrance with gifts, crying and shouting that they had been blinded by greed back then. I had security escort them out. I am not a saint. I cannot bring myself to forgive. With the company on track, I began to focus on another matter. I want to take back my father's company from those relatives. Back then, they used illegal means to seize my father's shares at a low price. I asked Li Ziyi to gather evidence and prepare to file a lawsuit, but Li Ziyi proposed an even bolder plan. Litigation is too slow. He drew a complex equity structure diagram on the whiteboard in my office. What they fear most right now is you. We can use that fear to reclaim everything without shedding a single drop of blood. How to do it? Public opinion warfare, combined with commercial attacks. Li Ziyi's eyes gleamed. I want to make them voluntarily spit out everything they've taken. We registered several social media accounts and began systematically exposing the scandals of those relatives from back then, one by one. For example, how my second uncle embezzled public funds to buy houses and cars for his mistress. For example, my third aunt, how she cooked the books to transfer the company's profits to her son's name. Back then, my father, out of consideration for family ties, suppressed all these matters. Now, they have become the sharpest weapon in my hands. For a time, those companies owned by relatives were mired in scandals, causing chaos and uproar. At the same time, using the funds from New Vision, I began quietly buying their stocks on the secondary market. By the time they realized what was happening, I had already become a minor shareholder in their company. As a shareholder, I demanded to review the accounts and called for a shareholders' meeting. They were completely panicked. My second uncle called me on his own initiative, and there was no longer any air of seniority in his voice. Sky, we are family. Is there anything we can't sit down and talk about properly? Second uncle, when my father was lying in the hospital bed, why didn't you think about us being family? That was all a misunderstanding. We are willing to return the shares to you. We'll return them to you at the original price. Original price? I laughed. Uncle, do you really think you still call the shots here? I gave them 2 options. First, I continue the short selling, bankrupt their company, ruin their reputation, and eventually send them to prison to keep Jetxie Company. Second, sell their shares to me at 1/10 of the current market price. Then get out of this city and never come back. They didn't choose, because they had no choice. A week later, I regained absolute control of my father's company. I changed the company name from Wen Group to Sihua Group, the Sai in missing, the Hua in Zhenhua. Dad, I did it. That night, the company held a celebration banquet. Li Ziyi drank too much. He took me home, and downstairs, he called out to me, Sky when? He asked me, fueled by the alcohol. We've fought side by side for so long, is it possible to take this alliance to the next level? I looked at him. The affection in his eyes wasn't something I failed to understand, but in my heart. That place had long been frozen. I smiled and patted his shoulder. Director Lee, do you know what our strategic goal for the next quarter is? It's entering the European market. If you can help me clear all the legal barriers there, I might consider giving you a hefty bonus. Lee Ziyi was taken aback for a moment, then smiled, a hint of helpless affection in his expression. All right, Chairman Wen, I'll follow your instructions. He knows my answer. Love is something I don't want to touch again in this lifetime. Time is the best healer and the fastest catalyst. 3 years later, I am no longer the Sky Wen who needs revenge to prove myself. Under my leadership, Sihua Group has become a business empire spanning technology, finance, and real estate. Chairman Wen, this title now represents decisiveness, precision, and an unbroken record of brilliant achievements in the business world. Lee Ziyi remains my most capable ally. He has become one of the country's top commercial lawyers, yet willingly serves only as my chief legal advisor. The understanding between us no longer requires words. A single glance is enough to know what the other is thinking. That day, we had just joined forces to win a brilliant commercial battle, snatching a lucrative opportunity right from the jaws of a seasoned financial giant. At the celebration banquet, glasses clinked in a lively toast. Lee Ziyi, holding a wine glass, walked over to my side and shielded me from wave after wave of people coming to propose toasts. You played brilliantly today, he said, looking at me with a familiar admiration in his eyes. It was your excellent coordination, I replied, clinking glasses with him and downing the drink in one go. After the banquet ended, he accompanied me home. The car pulled up at the apartment building, and just as I was about to get out, Lee Ziyi called out to me, "By the way, there's something I think I should give to you." He took an envelope out of his briefcase and handed it to me. The envelope had no name on it, and the postmark was from a place that felt both unfamiliar and familiar to me, a women's prison in the suburbs. I don't need to guess to know who sent it. It's from Norasu. What did she say? I didn't take it. Nothing more than some confessions and thanks. Lee Ziyi opened it for me and quickly skimmed through it. She said it was your appearance that made her see Jet Xie's true colors and made her pay the price for her crimes. She studied psychology inside and wants to help more people after she gets out. She said, "Thank you for giving her a new life." A new life. How ironic. One person's rebirth is built upon the destruction of another. Her confession means nothing to me. Burn it, I said. Okay. Lee Ziyi didn't ask further, stuffing the letter back into the envelope. The people and events of the past can no longer stir any emotional ripples within me. They are merely a crossed-out, insignificant entry in the ledger of my life. A few days later, Lee Ziyi told me a piece of news. Jet Xie is being released from prison next week. Due to his good behavior in prison and the Xie family's efforts to exhaust their wealth in maneuvering, his sentence was reduced. Do you need me to do anything? Lee Ziyi asked me. I gaze at the company's strategic map for the next 3 years on the computer screen, filled with countless territories waiting for me to conquer. In my world, there is no longer a place for him. Send a restraining order, I calmly instruct, prohibiting him from appearing within 100 meters of me in any form. Also, I pause, thinking of the perfect, final humiliation. Book a one-way ticket to Africa in my name for him, and transfer $10,000 to his card. Tell him this is my gift to him for getting out of prison, and the startup capital for his business. Erase him completely from my world. Let him get as far away as possible. Lee Ziyi smiled. Chairman Wen, you're still so unique. I just think everyone should go where they belong. I closed the strategic map and pulled up another document. It was information on a brand new, even more formidable business rival, a man from Wall Street, known as the Capital Butcher, has recently set his sights on the Asian market and on my company. The corner of my mouth curled into a smirk of excitement. The old war is over, and past enemies have been reduced to insignificant dust. And Sky Wen, my journey has only just begun. I look at Lee Ziyi beside me. Director Lee, are you ready? The new battlefield is here. He looks at me, his eyes mirroring the same thirst for battle as mine. Ready at any time, my queen, I'm going to see Jetsye. To see him one last time before he gets out of prison, not out of any old feelings, but to completely shatter any last illusions he might still be holding on to. In the visitation room, separated by a thick layer of glass, I saw him again. He was wearing a prison uniform, his head shaved to a buzz cut, his entire body so thin it was almost unrecognizable, his eyes hollow, with not a trace of his former spirited demeanor left. When he saw me, a faint glimmer of light finally appeared in his clouded eyes. He pressed himself against the glass, picked up the phone, his voice hoarse and urgent. "Sky, you finally came to see me. I knew you still cared about me." I looked at him coldly, watching his self-pitying display. "Jetsye, do you think that the reason you ended up in this situation is all because of Nora Sue's betrayal and your mother's foolishness?" He was taken aback for a moment, then nodded frantically. "Yes, it's them. They ruined me. If it weren't for them." "Wrong," I interrupted him. "You're wrong." I looked into his eyes and told him the cruelest truth, word by word, clearly. "The reason you ended up where you are today is not because of anyone else, but because of yourself, because of your greed, your hypocrisy, your cowardice, and your pitiful, wavering selfishness. You loved Nora Sue's beauty and the advantages she could bring you. Yet you couldn't let go of the stability I offered and the backing of the Wen family. You wanted everything, unwilling to give up anything. In the end, you were consumed by your own desires and left with nothing. Your tragedy was rooted in your character from the very beginning. Even without me, without Nora Sue, you would have eventually reached this point because of another woman, another situation. This is your fate." Every word I spoke tore away his last shred of dignity. The faint glimmer of hope on his face was completely extinguished. He slumped into the chair, his gaze vacant, muttering incessantly under his breath. "No, that's not how it is." I watched him completely break down. Knowing my goal had been achieved, I stood up and took one last look at him. "Jetsye, reform well. I forgot to tell you, I've packed up all the things you embezzled for Nora Sue and sent them to a charity. Oh, by the way, including that 3 million yuan first sight diamond ring. Consider it as doing a good deed for you and your white moonlight." After saying that, I turned and left, never looking back. Behind me was his utterly desperate, beast-like roar. The day one Jetsye was released from prison, the sky was gloomy, just like his mood at that moment. No family came to pick him up. The once bustling Xie family was now nothing but an empty shell. He stood at the prison gate, looking around in confusion, the vastness of the world making him feel panicked. A black car pulled up in front of him, and a man in a suit stepped out. It was Li Ziyi. Jetsye knew him. This man was Sky Wen's sharpest blade. "Mr. Xie." Li Ziyi's expression was devoid of warmth as he handed over a file folder. "Chairman Wen asked me to pass this to you." Jetsye's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were a court injunction and a one-way ticket to Ethiopia. There was also a bank card. Chairman Wen said, "This is a gift for your release from prison. There's 10,000 yuan in the card, which is your startup fund. She wishes you a new life in your new place." Li Ziyi conveyed Sky Wen's blessing word by word, clearly and distinctly. Each word felt like a slap, striking Jetsye's face with force. Humiliation. This is a blatant, undisguised humiliation. She treated him like trash, kicking him out of her world in the most contemptuous way. Did she have nothing else to say?" Jetsye asked hoarsely, clinging to his last shred of hope. "No." Li Ziyi closed the car door and sped away. Jetsye held the plane ticket, standing in place for a very, very long time. The wind blew, sweeping up the fallen leaves on the ground and carrying away the last shred of his dignity. In the end, he still boarded that plane, because he knew that in this city, he had nowhere left to go. Sky Wen's restraining order is like an invisible net, blocking all his paths. He had no choice but to leave. As the plane took off, he looked out the window one last time at the city he had lived in for decades. Skyscrapers stood tall, and neon lights flickered. The tallest and brightest one among them is Sky Wen's commercial empire. There, once a dream within his grasp, had now become a star forever out of reach. He closed his eyes, and 2 lines of murky tears finally fell. Meanwhile, I was in the top floor office, conducting a video conference that would determine the company's future direction. The opponent is that capital butcher from Wall Street, a man named Arthur. Chairman Wen, your offer is very sincere, but I prefer to see your sincerity reflected in action. On the video call, Arthur leaned back in his large leather chair, his smile carrying an aggressive edge. Mr. Arthur, I replied with an equally confident and composed smile, action has always been what I do best. I would prefer that our cooperation is based on mutual benefit, not one party devouring the other. Oh, in my world, mutual benefit means the strong devour the weak and leave the leftovers for the rest. Then I'm sorry, Mr. Arthur, in my world, I never play the weak. After saying that, I ended the video call directly. Li Ziyi stood to the side, his face full of concern. Won't this be too harsh? Arthur's methods on Wall Street have always been known for their ruthlessness. To deal with a wolf, you have to be even fiercer than it is. I stood up and walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the city below. If he wants my empire, he'll have to prove he has what it takes. In my eyes, there was a burning will to fight. The grudges and entanglements of the past had long been cast aside. Jet Xie, Nora Su, those names are no different to me than pebbles on the roadside. My journey is one of stars and oceans, a broader business landscape, and the thrill of competing with even stronger rivals. Li Ziyi watched my retreating figure, the worry in his eyes gradually replaced by admiration and fascination. This was the sky when he knew, always looking ahead, never bound by anyone or anything. I understand, Li Ziyi nodded. I will immediately activate the backup plan and prepare a big gift for him. Go ahead, I waved my hand. I was the only one left in the office. I looked at the city beneath my feet, feeling a sense of tranquility in my heart. The phone vibrated once. It was a text message from an unknown number. I'm leaving, wishing you happiness. It was from Jet Xie. I glanced at it, expressionless, then blocked the number and deleted the message. My life will no longer have any trace of him. I picked up a document on the desk, which was the proposal for the company's next charity project, about funding education for underprivileged girls in impoverished areas. On the title page of the proposal, I wrote a sentence. May every girl become the queen of her own life. Outside the window, night has fallen, and the city lights begin to glow. The era of sky when has only just begun. My journey knows no end, and those who once hurt me have long been crushed beneath the wheels, not even worthy of being a footnote in my story. The end. That's the end of the first story. I hope you enjoyed it. The next story will be even more exciting, so let's continue together. My mother and I have a relationship built purely on hatred. When my grades dropped to second place in the grade, she punished me by not allowing me to eat for 5 days and nights, only letting me do practice problems, so I dumped stinking garbage on her, making her unable to eat for 5 days and nights as well. She said I shouldn't spend time on dressing up, so she shaved off all my long hair. In the middle of the night, I secretly shaved her head bald as well. She heard that electric shock could cure rebellion, so she tied me to the electrotherapy table. When I got down, I seized the opportunity to grab the shock device and electrocuted her until she lost control and was hospitalized. We tormented each other for 18 years, until I secretly applied to a university thousands of miles away. On the day of departure, her gaze was as sharp as ice. Without me, you're nothing. I'll be waiting for the day you come back begging. And I swore I would never see her again in this lifetime. 5 years later, we met again at an international medical research conference. She was a key investor, and the first thing she said upon seeing me was, "It's been so many years, and you've ended up as a waiter. Without me, you really are useless. You're so thin, can you even afford to eat anymore?" But I'm not a waiter. I'm a patient in the clinical trial for this round of cancer medication. The woman before me was as arrogant and sharp as ever, her words piercing my heart with pain. "You've got it wrong. I'm not a waiter here." I instinctively opened my mouth to refute, but she sharply interrupted. "You're just the same as before, always making excuses and lying. When will you ever change this bad habit? Can't you just face your failures?" She, too, is just the same as before, skilled at denying everything about me. Falling one place in the rankings means not trying hard enough. Failing the math competition because of a fever means being incompetent. I used to argue with her until we were both red in the face, but now, thinking about my limited remaining time, I suddenly don't want to be confrontational with my only family member anymore. Mom, you've really got it wrong. I softened my tone, trying to explain. At that moment, Shen Shuqing's colleague walked over, and beside her was a glamorous-looking girl. Hey, Shuqing, isn't this your daughter? I feel like I haven't seen her in a long time. Why has she lost so much weight? Shen Shuqing sneered. Oh, leaving home for 5 years and coming back in such a state, isn't that just hilarious? She had a path laid out for her but refused to take it, thinking she was so capable. And now, just 5 years later, she can't even make it on her own. In front of outsiders, she seemed determined to crush me into the dust. The auntie put on a regretful expression and said, "Oh dear, what a pity. Our Xinyin is quite obedient to me. Right after graduation, I referred her to a branch company, and now she's already a supervisor." Shen Shuqing looked at Xinshin with an admiration and affection in her eyes that she had never shown me. If only she were half as sensible as Xinshin, she wouldn't be worse off than even a toe of others now. Their conversation pierced my heart, and I said sorrowfully, "Mom, I started working as a designer at a top company right after graduation." "It's not as bad as you think, I just resigned recently," Shen Shuqing sneered. "Sounds nice. You must have been fired, otherwise why would you be working here as a server?" Xinshin looked at me proudly and suddenly said, "Auntie, could it be that my sister has made some serious mistake? She looks unusually thin, as if she's gotten into something she shouldn't have." Upon hearing this, Shen Shuqing's face darkened abruptly, and she grabbed my hand to pull me outside. I widened my eyes and struggled with all my might, but my body was too weak to match her strength. "Where are you taking me? To get a urine test?" She snapped back. I shuddered. "You suspect I'm doing drugs? Are you crazy? How could I possibly touch that stuff?" Her tone was icy. "Shen Tinghe, I always knew you'd end up like this. You've been rebellious since you were young. It seems you're not just a problem for me, you've become a menace to society." I had a splitting headache. The spot in the new drug trial was something I fought hard to get. After 2 years of fighting cancer, I've exhausted all my savings. This free clinical trial is my only way out, so I absolutely cannot go with her. With a hardened heart, I opened my mouth and bit her arm. Shen Shuqing cried out in pain and let go, and I took off running. She was quick to grab my hair. In that instant, my wig was pulled off by her. The bluish scalp was exposed to everyone's view. Shocked and curious gazes intertwined, making my cheeks burn with pain. It felt like I was back in middle school, when Shen Shuqing shaved my head and forced me to go to school. At that time, my spirit was still fragile. Enduring endless ridicule and hearing all sorts of unpleasant nicknames, I went back to complain to Shen Shuqing, but she said calmly, "It's good this way. It'll help you cut off meaningless socializing and focus on your studies." That very night, I shaved her head while she was asleep. Shen Shuqing, however, paid no mind and bought herself a beautiful wig, while I had to continue going to school with a shaved head. That wig seemed to declare to me that I could never outdo her. Shen Shuqing froze when she saw my shaved head. She couldn't understand why I, who had once resisted cutting my hair so much, would willingly become bald. But my hair, it fell out from chemotherapy. Her gaze suddenly dropped, noticing the tattoo on my neck. It was a Quetzal bird, a symbol of freedom. I got it in my freshman year to celebrate breaking free from MS. Shen Shuqing. This tattoo, however, provoked Shen Shuqing. She stopped fixating on my hair and instead said with a tone of resentment, "You really have turned bad." I felt powerless. Even the only family I had in the world treated me this way. As if those extra days I had lived meant nothing at all. Snatching the wig from her hand, I said quietly, "Let's go." For the urine test, Shen Shuqing was surprised by my compliance and followed me out with suspicion. Sitting in the car, she drove while pondering for a long time before saying to me, "I plan to help you quit drugs within 3 years. After that, I'll give you 1 year to get into a graduate program in the finance field, and then I'll help you arrange a job." I smiled self-deprecatingly. "Are you so sure I've touched that stuff?" Shen Shuqing said with certainty. "I know your personality very well, you're naturally rebellious. People like you are always drawn to the most thrilling things. Fine, do as you please. I turned my head away and said calmly, after all, I don't even have 3 months left to live. Her plan simply can't be carried out. Along the way, we didn't clash. An eerie peace filled the car. This made Shen Shuqing somewhat uncomfortable. And several times she secretly glanced at me. She seemed to want to say something but hesitated. At the police station, the officers took this report very seriously and immediately arranged a urine test. A female officer inspected my naked body and muttered, "How can someone be so thin? It's just skin and bones." I smiled helplessly. The side effects of the anti-cancer drugs were severe, making it impossible for me to eat. Even if I managed to eat, the irritation would cause me to vomit everything. Over time, I lost all the flesh on my body. Most parents would suspect their child was ill upon seeing this, but Shen Shuqing assumed the worst about me. At that moment, she sat calmly in the hallway, one hand replying to work messages on WeChat, the other on a phone call. Your mom is really calm. If other parents found out their child was using drugs, they would have already cried and gone crazy. The officer whispered as he saw me out, in Shen Shuqing's life, her career has always come first. So when my father was dying, she answered my call and her first words were, "Shen Tinghe, can't you be a little more sensible and not disturb my work?" From that day on, I never learned how to be sensible, and I resented her cold-bloodedness. Someone like her, if she found out I have cancer, would probably just say, "Trash gets trash diseases, your existence really is meaningless." Seeing me come out, Shen Shuqing raised her hand to signal for silence. 10 minutes later, she hung up the phone. And the officer brought over the report. "Ms. Shen, your daughter's urine test results are completely normal." Shen Shuqing was taken aback, and another police officer added, "Maybe she's sick, you should take her to the hospital for a checkup." Shen Shuqing immediately denied it. "Since she was little, I've had experts customize her physical fitness and nutrition. It's impossible for her to have any serious illness." But she didn't know that the nutritionist's meals were awful. And I secretly threw them away many times. Physical training is exhausting, and after training, I still have to attend all kinds of tutoring classes. To get through the whole day, I often slack off, so my body isn't really that great. We haven't seen each other for 5 years. How do you know I'm very healthy? I crossed my arms and looked at her, my tone indifferent. Shen Shuqing was taken aback, her brows furrowed like a fox ready to pounce. "Then tell me, what illness do you have?" "Ha! You wouldn't believe me even if I told you." I scoffed and walked out. "Shen Tinghe, can you even communicate properly with people?" Shen Shuqing's voice was irritable behind me. I didn't answer her and got straight into the car. On the way home, Shen Shuqing kept glancing at me from time to time, then suddenly sighed and said, "Are you trying to lose weight like people online? How many times have I told you not to care about appearance? Do you think being this thin looks good now?" I looked at my skeletal hand and replied calmly, "It's all right." Shen Shuqing choked, as if angered, took a deep breath, and then spoke coldly, "Since you haven't touched that stuff, then follow the plan as scheduled, and add a weight gain plan. You'll do as you're told. Also, from today on, cut all ties with those so-called friends of yours." I turned to look at her. "Ms. Shen, you've wronged me. Shouldn't you apologize first?" Shen Shuqing snorted coldly. "It's you who made yourself look like you're on the verge of death, causing misunderstandings. Why should I apologize? Fine, in the end, it's my fault again. Shen Shuqing will never admit she's wrong." I let out a scornful laugh, turned my head away, and fell silent. She frowned deeply and said, "Did you hear what I just said? Focus on your graduate school entrance exams. I'm only giving you 1 year. Shen Tinghe, don't act like I owe you something. Why are you making that ugly face? I'm trying to save you. It's just a pity that she can't save me, and no one can anymore." Closing my eyes, I replied softly, "I understand." Shen Shuqing let out the breath she was holding, having expected a fierce argument to erupt in the car, but it didn't happen once again. I gave in. I moved back from the small rented apartment to this villa where I had lived for 18 years. Once this was a prison, and at the end of my life, I unexpectedly returned here. Shen Shuqing bought me a pile of tutoring materials and even hired a teacher. Out of 24 hours a day, 16 hours were spent studying. But my body couldn't withstand it. My head is also aching badly. Fortunately, I had brought enough painkillers with me. I would secretly take a few pills each time, barely managing to get by. Once, Shen Shuqing caught me taking the medicine and snatched it away, her expression instantly changing. After a long silence, she questioned me sharply, "Shen Tinghe, why are you taking sleeping pills? Do you know they can damage your brain?" But she didn't know that this medicine had a pain-relieving effect, and only by taking it could I sleep peacefully. My body trembling, I got up to snatch it, but she held it tightly in her hand. "Stop pretending to have a psychological illness. These are just excuses weak-minded people use to justify their cowardice. I don't want you to become that kind of person." She took the medicine and left. I didn't have the strength to chase after her, so I had to endure the pain through the night. Apart from that, Shen Shuqing was very satisfied with my obedience. At least, the tone is no longer so sharp. She was still very busy, and aside from checking my study progress in the evenings, we hardly saw each other. When she criticized my academic performance, she didn't notice my increasingly poor complexion. Half a month later, my health deteriorated further because I hadn't gone for chemotherapy on time. I almost fainted during class. I knew I couldn't hold on any longer, so I took the afternoon off and used the last of my money for one final chemotherapy session. After the chemotherapy, I wanted to leave just 2 hours after lying in the hospital bed. The nurse advised, "Miss Shen, the doctor said your condition is very unstable. You should check into the hospital as soon as possible." I shook my head. "Since I don't have much time left anyway, I'd better go back and spend more time with my family." The nurse's eyes were full of sympathy. "Miss Shen, your family must be very sad." I thought of the disdainful look Shen Shuqing gave me last night while checking my homework and smiled self-deprecatingly. "Yeah, probably quite annoyed," I said lightly. When I returned home with a pale face, Shen Shuqing sat coldly on the sofa, her sharp gaze pierced through me. "Shen Tinghe, do you know how many students are lining up for the tutor I hired for you, and you still don't appreciate the opportunity to study? Falling asleep in class is one thing, but taking time off just to go out and have fun. Shen Tinghe, you're 23, still so willful. Are you really determined to turn yourself into a failure? I'm so disappointed in you. I thought you would turn over a new leaf, but I never expected you to still be so stubborn. I shouldn't have been soft-hearted and tried to save you." Her harsh accusations made me feel terrible. I opened my mouth, wanting to explain, but my stomach churned violently. The side effects of chemotherapy are acting up again. I covered my mouth and rushed to the bathroom, the sound of retching echoing sharply in the space. It felt like I was about to vomit my stomach out. Shen Shuqing followed me, her gaze growing colder and colder. When I finished vomiting and turned my head with a flushed and swollen face, I heard her say, "Shen Tinghe, are you pregnant?" My hands froze, and my voice was terribly hoarse. "Shen Shuqing, it's either drugs or pregnancy. Am I really that despicable in your eyes?" Her eyes were full of disappointment. She didn't respond to my words but continued with her own assumptions. "You took time off to meet some lover, didn't you, Shen Tinghe? Do you even know what's important and what's not? Dating while studying, and getting pregnant before marriage. Are you really trying to ruin your life?" I leaned over the toilet, listening to her words, feeling nothing but exhaustion, wishing I could just pass out completely. But Shen Shuqing pulled me up in one swift motion. She filled a cup with water and splashed it harshly on my face. In this rough manner, she washed away the saliva at the corner of my mouth. Then she dragged me out to the hospital. To get rid of the child, I used all my strength to push her hand away. "Shen Shuqing, I'm not fucking pregnant. Can you just believe me for once?" Shen Shuqing raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face, still making excuses. "Shen Tinghe, wake up already." I covered my stinging cheek, a surge of anger rising within me. "Yes, I am foolish. Foolish enough to think you could still be considered a mother. Foolish enough to hold on to the last shred of mother-daughter affection for you. Shen Shuqing, you don't deserve anyone's love. You let Dad down, and you ruined me. I hate you. I hate that you gave birth to me. I hate that someone like you had to be my mother." My words left Shen Shuqing completely frozen. Her lips trembled as she stared at me fiercely. "Shen Tinghe, do you think I ever wanted a daughter like you? always opposing me, always causing me worry. I'm the one who regrets giving birth to you." I let out a cold laugh and nodded resolutely. "Don't worry, you'll get your wish." With that, I turned and made to storm out the door. Shen Shuqing's icy voice came from behind me. "Shen Tinghe, if you dare leave today, we'll sever our mother-daughter relationship. From now on, I won't care about you anymore. And don't you come begging me." My hand on the doorknob paused. If that were the case, there would be no one in the world to collect my body. I lowered my head, rushed back to the room, and slammed the door shut, my entire body sliding down in exhaustion. Shen Shuqing was very satisfied with my compromise. "Shen Tinghe, you've finally made the right choice. I'll give you the night to think it over, whether you want to go with me tomorrow to get rid of the child." As the words faded, I heard the sound of high heels gradually receding into the distance, and my consciousness drifted further and further away as well. Shen Shuqing still had to work overtime that night, but while she worked, my furious, desperate accusations kept echoing in her mind. She was completely unable to focus on her work. Frustrated, she closed her laptop, poured herself a glass of whiskey, and tried to soothe her worries under the night sky. "Zhenhai. Am I too overbearing?" she murmured into the night. Zhenhai was her father's name. The next day, she arrived at my door with her makeup still flawless and her attire sharp, knocking. "Shen Tinghe, get up and come to the hospital with me." No response. She knocked harder, but still, there was no response. Shen Shuqing raised her hand to press the door handle, but it was locked. Her patience instantly vanished, turning into anger. "Shen Tinghe, you really are a fool. Resisting me in this way won't end well for you." With those words, she walked straight out the door. With a click, she locked the main door from the outside as well. Walking downstairs, she said to the security guard, "Keep a close watch and don't let anyone deliver takeout inside. Shen Shuqing wants to starve me for a day. Just like when I was a child, if I don't obey her, she won't give me food until I can't hold on any longer and apologize to her. She still wants to control me in this way." But until evening, I still hadn't contacted her. Shen Shuqing returned home and asked the security guard, "Was there a food delivery person here today?" The security guard shook his head. "No." Shen Shuqing felt a surge of anger inside. Walking quickly home, I kept knocking on my door. "Shen Tinghe, have you had enough? Do you really want to fight me to the end? You and I are, if you starve to death in there, I won't collect your body." But the confrontational words she had anticipated did not appear. Shen Shuqing's frown deepened. She went to the tool room, grabbed a hammer, and smashed it hard against the bedroom door lock. Bang! The door swung open. As Shen Shuqing stepped inside, her foot kicked against something hard. It was my bony back. She looked down, and the sight that met her eyes was even more shocking. Blood all over the ground. My white clothes were stained bright red. The lower half of my face was smeared with dried blood. "Shen Tinghe." Shen Shuqing trembled all over, crouched down, and placed her hand near her nose. Fortunately, there was still breathing. Her rationality made her immediately dial 120, and she managed to clearly state the address. But her hand was shaking so much she could barely hold the phone steady. She had never lost her composure like this before. From childhood to adulthood, she always liked to have everything under her control. Yet, there were 3 things in her life that spiraled out of her control. One was missing her husband's final moments. One is me, out of control. The last one is me, whose fate is unknown at this moment. Her hand caressed my cheek. It was too cold, so cold it made her heart race. "Shen Tinghe, answer me. Did you take some random medicine just to spite me? I'm telling you, when you wake up, I won't let your impulsive behavior slide." She looked at me, pretending to be cold and indifferent, as if that would make me suddenly open my eyes and argue with her fiercely like before. But I was terrifyingly quiet. The ambulance arrived quickly, and Shen Shuqing got on the ambulance together. She looked at the nurse and asked in a low voice, "She seems to be pregnant. Is it because of her poor physical condition that she can't get pregnant, which is causing such heavy bleeding?" The accompanying nurse was taken aback, put an oxygen mask on me, and immediately began performing a simple ultrasound examination. With a grave expression, she moved the device and shook her head. "She is not pregnant." Shen Shuqing stiffened all over. Then did she accidentally take some medicine she shouldn't have? I noticed she was taking something like sleeping pills. The nurse asked her the name of the medicine. Shen Shuqing had a very good memory and roughly described it. The nurse hesitated and said, "These are all painkillers. Your daughter might be hiding some illness from you." Shen Shuqing's fingers trembled. Thinking of my bald head and my emaciated body, her unease grew heavier. After hanging up the phone, the ambulance finally arrived at the hospital. Shen Shuqing followed the nurse rushing to the door of the operating room. And coincidentally, the one performing the surgery on me was my attending physician. He didn't do much examination before entering the operating room. We will do our best. Please wait outside patiently, Shen Shuqing asked anxiously. What is her current condition? But no one replied to her. Shen Shuqing sat on the chair in the corridor, her meticulously applied makeup now smudged, and her clothes disheveled. That youthful face, which seemed ageless, had also weathered considerably. Both phones in her bag were vibrating. One was a call from her assistant, the other from a business partner. Shen Shuqing, looking utterly distraught, answered her assistant's call, who was inquiring about data for a certain project. But Shen Shuqing's mind was in a mess. For the first time, the data she had reported was incorrect. "President Shen, what's wrong?" the assistant asked, somewhat puzzled. "I have something to attend to right now, I'll get back to you later." Shen Shuqing wearily ended the call. Another phone was vibrating annoyingly, so she simply turned them all off. Unlike the last time at the police station, these tasks suddenly seemed far less important to her. Even particularly repulsive, missing her father's final moments was all for the sake of work. It was a project critical to the company's survival, and when I called, the meeting was at a crucial point. Shen Shuqing hung up on me without a second thought. She didn't want her efforts to go to waste over something she considered trivial. Later, the project was successfully secured. She turned on her powered-off phone and saw my text. "Dad is gone, when can you come?" At that moment, it felt just as dizzying and disorienting. By the time she rushed to the hospital, speeding all the way, Dad's body was already cold. I rushed to her in fury, shouting at her with a heart-wrenching roar, "Dad wanted to see you one last time before he died. Why didn't you come? All you care about is work. Is work more important than Dad and me?" Shen Shuqing didn't dare to admit it at the time, but deep down, she often felt that way. Work gave her life meaning, while family would always be there. Only now did she realize that life is fragile. No one can remain as strong as she has been all along. Her family was no exception. 2 hours later, a nurse came out with a critical condition notice, asking Shen Shuqing to sign it. Critical condition. What illness does she actually have? Shen Shuqing widened her eyes, her voice turning extremely sharp. The nurse was taken aback. "You didn't know, Shen Tinghe is in the late stages of brain cancer. A few days ago, we advised her to undergo chemotherapy, but she said she didn't want to waste time. She wanted to spend time with her family." "I thought she had already told you." Shen Shuqing staggered back. "Late-stage brain cancer. She never told me." "Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Since she was a child, her health has always been excellent. There's no way she could be in the late stages of brain cancer." The nurse looked at her sympathetically and sighed. "There are many factors that contribute to cancer, and there have been many patients who were once in good health." Shen Shuqing's face turned pale, and her lips trembled as she asked, "So now, what is the specific situation?" "It's terminal and has already spread. Last month, the doctor said it would be hard to last more than 3 months. Shen Shuqing choked up, feeling as if the world was spinning, unable to utter a single word. This daughter, whom she had painstakingly raised since childhood and placed high hopes on, was her life really going to end so briefly at the age of 23? Shen Shuqing couldn't believe it. At this moment, she deeply regretted the pressure she had put on me these past few days. She had never so desperately wished for me to live a healthy life. Even if it meant being ordinary, or even incompetent, it didn't matter. As long as I could survive. But it was all too late. After signing the papers, Shen Shuqing suddenly thought of something, took out her phone, and dialed a number. "How did the experimental results for this batch of anti-cancer drugs turn out?" "Unstable. They didn't achieve very significant results," came the reply from the other end. "Please, I'm begging you, can I add someone to the trial? Give her the best medication." Shen Shuqing lowered her head, her tone carrying a rare note of pleading. Director Shen, has something happened to someone close to you? Shen Shuqing closed her eyes. It's my daughter. The person on the other end paused, then said sympathetically, all right, please send me her personal information and medical records. We'll arrange things as soon as possible. Half an hour later, the person in charge called again. Ms. Shen, your daughter had previously signed up for our experimental program, but on the day of the road meeting, she suddenly left and later said she wouldn't be participating in the project. Shen Shuqing was taken aback, only then realizing that the day she and I met again was at the International Medical Research Conference. It turned out that day, I wasn't a server, but an experimental patient. Everything was wrong. She was wrong. Even worse, she kept making mistakes. I had the chance to be part of the treatment back then, but she took me away to do that humiliating urine test. Forced me to take that damn graduate school exam. Shen Shuqing, with all her scheming and planning day in and day out, thinking she's so impressive, didn't even realize her own daughter had a terminal illness. Regret kept spreading through her chest. I'm sorry, Shen Shuqing murmured, looking at the operating room, uttering the first apology of her life to me. 3 hours later, I was finally resuscitated. During this time, Shen Shuqing had been contacting renowned cancer experts both domestically and internationally. I was transferred to the intensive care unit. The doctor looked at Shen Shuqing and said regretfully, it's only a temporary stabilization. The situation is not good. She didn't persist with chemotherapy or take her medication consistently. The cancer cells have spread to an irreversible extent, so we suggest you start preparing for the end. Shen Shuqing clenched the strap of her bag, her fingertips turning white. Can she be transferred to another hospital? She asked. The doctor shook his head. Not recommended. At this stage of the illness, we can only delay death. It's very difficult to achieve a full recovery, and the process will involve a great deal of suffering. You should think it over carefully. Shen Shuqing's eyes showed disappointment. The doctor left, and I didn't wake up until the next morning. I looked at Shen Shuqing with bleary eyes and froze. I have never seen Shen Shuqing in such a disheveled state, her hair messy as she lay by my bedside, looking utterly exhausted. Hearing my movement, she suddenly lifted her head. You're awake, are you? Are you feeling unwell? Listening to her gentle voice, I felt somewhat dazed and found it hard to believe. All of this feels like a dream. Seeing that I remained silent, her expression froze, and she seemed a bit awkward. She had never been a loving mother, and her concern for me appeared stiff. What would you like to eat? I'll have someone buy it for you. I shook my head. I can't eat. After taking the anti-cancer medication, it took away all my appetite. Upon hearing this, Shen Shuqing's eyes reddened. So you've become so thin because of the anti-cancer medication? I nodded almost imperceptibly. Why didn't you tell me? Why? She lowered her head, her voice choked with emotion. Telling you this, you'd probably just dismiss me as useless. Since I don't have much time left to live, I might as well use my limited time to earn a bit of your respect, I answered hoarsely, my voice thick with sorrow. Shen Shuqing's heart ached, and she asked in disbelief, in your eyes, am I really that kind of person? Isn't that the case? You were just as cold when Dad passed away. Upon hearing this, Shen Shuqing choked up. There was a reason for that. I didn't mean to not come. It's just that the work was too important. Work. It's all you care about. You even want to mold me into a machine like you. Shen Shuqing, do you think that kind of life is meaningful? Shen Shuqing stood frozen in place. Tinghe, I'm doing this for your own good. I want you to have a promising future and live the life you want. I looked at her. I was already living the life I wanted, getting away from you and doing the design work I love. Unfortunately, heaven isn't giving me the chance to continue. No, Tinghe. I will find the most advanced medicine for you, the best specialists. You will definitely recover your health. Shen Shuqing grasped my hand, her voice choked with emotion. I closed my eyes, a tear falling from the corner of my eye. I know all too well what has become of my body. She had long been invaded by cancer cells, and her organs were rapidly failing. Her current clarity of mind was merely a withdrawal from the last of her life. Ms. Shen, unfortunately. This time it won't go as you wish again. You can't save me anymore. My moments of clarity are becoming fewer and fewer. Chemotherapy is keeping me barely alive, with only my last breath left. In my blurred consciousness, I felt as if I had traveled to a faraway place. Many experts were gathered around me. I even heard Shen Shuqing's desperate cries. Oh, it's so rare to see someone like Shen Shuqing actually begging others, but I don't want to see her act this way in front of outsiders. She should always maintain her pride, until she too passes away, and then comes underground to apologize to me and Dad. On a silent and soundless night, Shen Shuqing sat beside me, looking haggard. The silk shirt she was wearing seemed to have been worn for a long time. Back in the day, she was a city beauty who wouldn't wear the same clothes 2 days in a row. Her face was free of makeup. The wrinkles had deepened considerably, and the dark circles under her eyes were left completely uncovered. I wanted to say to her, "Ms. Shin, you look so unkempt. Can you tidy up a bit before coming to see me?" But I couldn't speak. I had no strength, and my voice was completely choked off. Zhenhai, I've never felt so powerless in my life. I've been strong-willed for half a lifetime, yet I can't even save my own daughter. She didn't notice that I was awake. Murmuring while gazing at the moonlight outside the window, my heart skipped a beat. I hadn't expected that, in her distress, she would think of her father. Zhenhai, what should I do? Can you, from up in heaven, bless our daughter and help her recover quickly? If she leaves, I'll have no family left in this world. Shen Shuqing cried, tears streaming down her face. She kept raising her hand to wipe the tears from her face, looking very sad and fragile, unlike Shen Shuqing. I struggled to move my arm, grabbed the hem of Shen Shuqing's clothes, and tugged hard. She trembled and looked down at me. Tears dripped onto my pale, withered face. Tinghe, what's wrong? Are you in pain somewhere again? She knew how painful cancer was, and she knew I was in constant agony every day. At this moment, her voice and eyes were also filled with heartache. Looking at her, I shook my head. After a long while, I took a deep breath. With all my strength, I said, "Mom, I am going to the heavens to be with you." Shen Shuqing stiffened all over. "No, Tinghe, you must hold on. The overseas expert I invited for you will arrive tomorrow. You will get better." I twitched the corner of my mouth, shook my head, and stared straight at the ceiling. The heart monitor emitted a piercing alarm. Shen Shuqing panicked. She leaned over me, crying helplessly. Tinghe, Tinghe, I'm sorry. Mom is sorry. Please wake up. Okay, stay with me a little longer. I promise I'll never force you to do anything you don't want to do again. Alright, if there's a next life, I hope you keep your word. I slowly closed my eyes. After my death, Shen Shuqing had a breakdown for a while. It was as if she wanted to shed all the tears she had saved up in her lifetime. She cried when I died, and she cried during the cremation. She cried so much that her eyes swelled up like goldfish bubbles. It was quite ugly. But she didn't bury me. Instead, she put my ashes in a delicate little bottle and took it home with her. How strange. Isn't she afraid that I might turn into a ghost and scare her in the middle of the night? After all, I used to do that often. As soon as she got home, after being so busy for so long without even taking a break, she immediately started rummaging through my room. She used to like going through my room too, but it was to check for any forbidden items that shouldn't be there. Things like makeup, novels, love letters, anything that could affect my studies. But this time, she wished I had left more things behind, so she could remember me better. She looked at my study notes, my photos, and even my diary. Alas, the diary I hid in the gap by the head of the bed was actually found by her. I actually suggested she not read it, because there's nothing nice written in it. Every page is filled with various ways of complaining about Shen Shuqing. Sure enough, as she read, she started crying again and began saying sorry to me. Her apology was as precious as gold, so how did it turn into worthless scrap after I died? Shen Shuqing is just someone who doesn't know how to appreciate things. Just wait, she'll regret it. For a whole week, she refused to leave my room. She practically touched every single one of my belongings. It's really creepy. What surprised me even more was that she didn't even go to the company. President Shen, who even had to look at the computer during the New Year's Eve dinner on the 30th day of the lunar year, actually skipped work. I guess everyone in the company would find it strange. Ms. Shin slacked off like this for a whole week. One day, while scrolling through her phone, she suddenly sprang up from the bed. She quickly walked into the study and turned on the computer. I floated behind her, shaking my head and sighing, truly addicted to work, can't even hold back anymore. But when I took a closer look, what was displayed on the computer was actually a resignation letter. Crazy, MS. Shin has completely lost her mind. She actually gave up her favorite job. She's actually going to resign. I stared wide-eyed as Shin Shuqing swiftly sent her resignation letter to the boss's email. Within 3 seconds, she received a call from the boss. Shuqing, you want to resign? Why didn't you discuss it with me first? Don't you know how important you are to the company? I know your daughter's death has been very hard on you, but you still have to live your life. You can't just give up like this, can you? Shin Shuqing took a deep breath and said firmly, I've devoted half my life to the company. Now, I want to give myself back to my family. Give yourself back to your family. But aren't they all gone? Shuqing, don't do anything foolish. The leader was confused, and his tone suddenly became urgent. Shin Shuqing chuckled lightly. Don't worry. I won't do anything foolish. I tilted my head. So what does she want to do? After finishing the handover of work, Shin Shuqing began to pack her luggage. Finally, she placed my ashes into her bag and headed to the airport. Tinghe, didn't you always want me to take you traveling? Now I'm fulfilling your wish. On the plane, she looked at the layers of white clouds and murmured to me in her bag. I was taken aback, only then remembering that when I was a child, I envied classmates who went on trips during summer vacation and had also asked Shin Shuqing to take me, but she coldly refused. I don't have time. Besides, traveling is a waste of time. With that energy, you might as well do a few more sets of practice problems. I had no choice but to give up. Later, traveling also became my aspiration. In college, I spent all my savings on traveling, and even changed my social media profile to dreaming of traveling the world. So, Shin Shuqing saw my social media post. What's going on? I feel a bit warm inside. 20 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Shin Shuqing has been to 100 countries. She took me to a bigger world, where I met different people, encountered more stories, witnessed more magnificent scenery, and saw more ways of living in this world. Shin Shuqing also understood the limitations of her life. It turned out that work wasn't everything. Life should be rich and varied. Later, Shin Shuqing became a less aloof old lady. She soon couldn't keep up with the fun anymore. She took my ashes back to her hometown. Finally, she buried me next to Dad. This day happened to be the anniversary of my death. This old lady, despite her age, still has such a good memory. I watched as my ashes were buried underground. The soul also began to dissipate. Goodbye, MS. Shin. This journey has been very pleasant. Looking at this white-haired woman, I whispered softly. Shin Shuqing couldn't hear. She tremblingly placed a bouquet of white flowers in front of my grave. As she moved, a white medicine bottle slipped out of her pocket. I sighed and said helplessly, "All right, see you later, MS. Shin." End of story. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every week, we bring you new and exciting content that you won't want to miss. Also, feel free to share your thoughts and feelings in the comments section. Let's discuss and exchange ideas together. Remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you all for your support, and see you next time.